everybody? What's up, Fortnite Creative community? Welcome to the stream today, guys. This is really exciting. It's been a while since I've actually done a live stream myself, even though this isn't officially on my channel. This is on the Fortnite Creative channel, in case you didn't know where you were at. This is not the MustardPlays channel. Oh, hold on. I got a little bit of an echo going on here. I got it. I fixed it. Guys, lots of familiar names and faces, names in the chat. Super excited that everyone's here. I saw some questions earlier already. People like, is this live? Is this recorded? This is all live. This is unfiltered. We're going to go hard, and we're going to have lots of great questions today. We are talking about moderation. I sent out a tweet a couple days ago saying that we're going to do this. There was a lot of questions about a lot of topics in the tweet. We're trying to focus on moderation today, because if we didn't, this would turn into like a 6-hour discussion. We're going to be focusing on moderation so we can really dial in on some of the concerns there. I've heard a lot of your questions. I'm going to try to ask as many of them as possible. So it's going to be really fun. I don't want to waste too much more time just talking right now. So I'd love if we're talking with Saxs, Persson, and Dan Walsh today, if they want to introduce themselves real quick, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Saxs, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So I look after the Fortnite ecosystem, sort of like in its totality, in like the UEFN side, the creator economy, so a little bit of like everything that makes like the Fortnite ecosystem hum. I work very closely with a ton of the other part of it, and I'm part of Epic's executive team. So I'm here to put a face on all the concerns that people have and all the questions and everything. And I brought my good friend Dan with me to like go deep on moderation questions, because we know there's a lot of concerns, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of like, can we clarify this? And the goal today is just like fire away. We'll do our best to answer. We'll say when we can't or we don't know, and get back to you or whatever. But the goal is to just have a free form conversation about anything and everything to do with trust and safety and moderation.
Great. And then Dan,
yeah,
a quick rundown.
I'll keep it quick so we can get to the questions. I'm Dan. I lead the product team for trust and safety, which basically means a couple of different things. One, anytime we're bringing new products and features into Fortnite that are player facing, we want to make sure that they're safe and we're able to moderate. So I work with the team to enable that. And then what I think people probably care a little bit more about today is the flip side, the creator side of that, which anytime we introduce new features to creators, how do we handle moderation? How do we work through that whole process? And I work really closely both with everyone on the trust and safety leadership team, including things like policy and operations and our vendor managers, to make sure that we're doing as good a job as possible for you all. So I think let's leave it there. We can jump right into the questions, because I know there's a lot, and we have an hour or so. So let's get to it.
Okay, and I'm going to try to leave some time. If you have questions throughout, you can ask them in the chat. Some of our awesome folks at Epic are trying to grab questions as we go. I'm going to try. We're going to get through a lot of topics anyways. Maybe your question will get answered by the end. I know there's a lot of questions about IP, AI, and stuff like that. We're going to get to those, so stick around. That's your teaser. You can't leave until we talk about those things. But I wanted to start maybe just with a general idea. I know you've had some presentations before where you go into depth with like how things are done. But I just want to start with understanding moderation process just a little bit. We don't have to dive super deep into this, but the first question is, how much of moderation is automated versus like a human that's actually moderating everything?
Yeah, it's funny. This question comes up a lot, and I feel like we've answered it a few times, but nobody believes me. So I'll say it again, which is that like a human reviews every single island that gets published into Fortnite. We have automated systems that help with all that. Obviously, like we have millions of assets uploaded every day. We use machine learning to sort of prioritize where human eyeballs go on the asset side, and then we review everything within the context of the island. So that means that a moderator or a team of moderators, in the case of a multiplayer island, will go in. They'll spend, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 15 minutes probably going through playing the island, making sure that it functions, and that it doesn't break any of our island creator rules. So the answer is a mix of both, but a human is involved in everything before it gets live.
So just a follow-up question on that. I know it's got to be, there's so much that sneaks through in a 10 to 15 minute moderation. Is the automated system saying, oh, I found something that's maybe questionable, and then the moderator reviews that, or is the moderator just expected to find pretty much everything from like secrets to whatever that are hiding in the island?
Yeah, so the automated system, will surface things we have a custom moderation tool called Badger, which we built ourselves to sort of facilitate the moderation of everything that appears within our ecosystem. So the automation will basically surface individual assets within Badger outside of the island and say, like, these are the ones that we think deserve heavier scrutiny. And we'll have moderators review those, outside of the island, and then they will go in and do the playthrough to see, looking at, let's say, a plain white box, outside of an island is like, yeah, that's obviously there's nothing there. But within the context of the island, they can be arranged in certain ways that can be violative, as the most sort of basic example. So that's why we sort of use a mix of both, because you can't rely solely on automation for that sort of enforcement.
Interesting. Okay. Well, so I guess my next question then is, how many moderators are there? And maybe along with that, I want to know, like, how many islands are being submitted every day? And like, how many what is the moderate? Yeah. So how many moderators do you have? And then like, what is one moderator a day is having moderate, what, 10 islands, 100 islands? I'd love to know some of those details.
Well, not 100 would be an awful lot if they're in there for 10 minutes. So what I'll say is, like, I don't want to get into the specific number of moderators, because the truth is that it's going to fluctuate based on volume. We see about 4,000 or so islands a day right now. It really, it varies based on seasonality and all sorts of things like that nature. So when we think about staffing, it's really about how do we right size our moderation force for the amount of volume that we're seeing across everything. So what that looks like for island creators is, our goal is to get to every island that is submitted in 3 hours or less from a moderation perspective for UEFN. And there are times where we're not able to meet that goal, but the overwhelming majority of the time, we're well within 3 hours per island. So
I think that's the important bit, is that it's rather than solving for the number of people, we're trying to solve for a reasonable turnaround, like an SLA that creators can trust. When we review it, like when a bunch of us sit with Dan and the team and go, how did we do on a season launch or something like that? Generally, like, what we look at is how long did it take for an update to an island to go through. When you say 4,000 islands, it should be said that a lot of those are updates to islands. Like, the majority of those are island updates, and as such, from an incremental perspective, not much has changed. So it goes faster to go through them, obviously.
So is the moderation? So it is a different. So if I'm just doing an update, I'm adding some of the new guns from the update that came out that morning. Is it does the moderator know this is like, oh, it's already been approved a bunch of times before, and does the moderator see what the changes are? Like, how does that work? Like, if they can see, oh, you've added some guns, changed the UI, like, how specific are the tools for them?
We don't have like a strict change log in the way that you sort of just described it, but I think there are reasons that we would, like, there are pros and cons to an approach like that, right? So just stepping back and thinking about it a little bit philosophically, it really comes down to like the context that I talked about before. So just because like an island has only added, like, oh, they've added 10 things, to a previously approved island, and you look at those 10 things and you would say, like, oh yeah, there doesn't look like there's anything here. But if there are ways that you can place anything within an island that would make it violative. So we can't just sort of review the assets independently of the island. So there is still an island review process. What we try to do, though, and we've made some recent improvements here already, and we have some more on the horizon, is like, how do we look to like historical moderation decisions and carry those forward so that we're not sort of relitigating every single piece of content if we know it's non-violative. So like going back to the asset upload example, if if the same asset has been uploaded, let's say 100 times, and 100 times moderators have said like, yep, that looks good, then we should just stop looking at that asset unless we've had another change to our rules. So like that's something that we've already put in place to streamline the asset upload practice. And then looking forward, one of the things that I know people are particularly focused on is things like, I've submitted this thumbnail 8 times, like the same exact thumbnail has gone through moderation 8 times, and then on the 9th time I got rejected. Like, what happened there? And the answer is, like this is really a human, like humans make mistakes, humans will disagree on things, but what we want to do is like when we've reached a consensus and we have like a strong chain of the same positive decision, we're working to instill ways to sort of like carry that decision forward so that if a new moderator says like, oh, actually, no, I think this is violative, it automatically gets escalated and re-reviewed so that it's not just rejected outright. So I think that's sort of the example of, it's a little bit faster to go through for an update versus a net new island, but maybe not as much as you might expect because of that. We're still doing that in-game island playthrough, but what we want to do is make it so that there are as few surprises as possible when you're doing an island update if your stuff has already been approved a handful of times before.
Okay, I definitely appreciate that. But how then? I'm curious. Do you have like training for every moderator? Is it all the same? Because kind of like what you said, my thumbnail was accepted 9 times, then it got rejected the last time. Like, what is there training to ensure to help ensure consistency across the board? What does that look like? Like, is it just like, do they have like a list of things that they have to like for sure watch for? Or like, I'm just curious, how do you have consistency when there's so much room for human error?
Yeah, it's a good question and a hard problem to be completely candid with you, because we do, our team is distributed around the world and they are reviewing a lot of content, and so our approach is basically one, yes, we have basic sort of training. Here's how the tools work. Here are the rules and guidelines you need to be aware of. We have integrated sort of like reference guides into our moderation tools so that if they are looking at something and they're thinking, oh, that's not quite right, like what is this, like when am I supposed to apply the misleading tag, they can pull up documentation that has like, here's the definition, here's exactly what would fall under this, here are some examples of what would be allowed, here are examples of what's not allowed, and they can reference all that as they're going through. That being said, like we do monitor and review their performance both on an individual level and then how they're doing compared, like how individual policies and tags are being applied. So if we see things going sort of too far out of whack in any direction, like for a moderator, we can sit them down and retrain them. And if we think it's a documentation problem, then we'll revisit our documentation. And certainly if we think it's a policy problem, then we'll look at our public external guidelines and be like, it doesn't seem like creators are really understanding what our expectations are here, so we probably need to make some adjustments for clarity. And we actually have a rule change going live next week, focused on music lyrics in games, that to sort of like make it a bit more explicit, because it wasn't like, we just felt like there was some confusion on the creator side that we wanted to address and make sure that they understood what we were looking for. So I think that's how we think about it. But it is, you're never going to get to a system where everybody is always going to make the same decision on something, because it's not, this isn't a math problem. It's requires like a high degree of subjective analysis, really. It's when you're thinking about things like what's a good example? Let's see, like and favorites was the thing that there was a lot of misleading activity around like and favorite a couple months ago. And we made an update to the rules, which was helpful, but even in enforcement to that rule, it wasn't as clear as like, well, we want people to be able to solicit likes and favorites on their islands, because that's how you grow your community, and that's really valuable from a creator perspective. but we don't want likes and favorites to be used in a way to like trick players. Like we don't want players tricked into liking and favoriting an island because they think they're going to be rewarded with something in the game, when we know that there's no way for a player to be rewarded based on the like whether or not they've liked or favorited an island. So then it became, well, if they're putting them really close to something that isn't actually available, or they're like if they're explicitly saying like and favorite this for this super powerful weapon, like obviously that's a problem. So like we should hit them for that. But if they're putting it really close to something and there's a strong implication that if they like and favorite a thing, it'll somehow unlock this magical, mystical, super powerful weapon. But that's not possible within the code of the game. Then we need to make a call there. And then it's, well, how close is too close? And how much are they actually suggesting that? And that's where you'll start to see some differences of opinion that becomes really hard to get everyone. Like 100 people could look at the same thing and maybe 90 of them agree. But 10 of them may not and say like, well, actually, I thought, I thought this one was okay. It wasn't quite over the line for me. And those types of gray areas are just really hard to drive alignment on. But
how do you communicate that to the creator? Because I sometimes when we get rejected, you just see the message that says content in your island. I know you guys have gotten better at like saying, here's why, or here's a screenshot. But oftentimes those screenshots are like just a screenshot of your island, and it's not really pointing to anything, and the message is unclear. So like a rule like that one that you're talking about with the likes and favorites, and have the call to action just far enough away from anything else that it doesn't get flagged. Like that's not in terms of service anywhere. That's not like there's no written rule for that anywhere, and people don't know. It's just kind of at the mercy of the moderator.
I mean, it is in the I push back on it not being in the rule because like don't scam players on your island is a rule. I think whether or not it's intentional, I guess, is maybe what you're talking about. And for a well-meaning creator who sort of like accidentally tripped over the line, they may not know. There are a couple of ways that we've already sort of worked on that, and there's more to come there. I think you mentioned thumbnails that are screenshots of rejections. That's one. We talked a little bit at Unreal Fest last year about expanding sub rules so that when we are sort of narrowing in on a rule that's fairly broad, we can at least sort of like be a little bit more descriptive about what specifically we're focused on here. I think the other one that we are currently trialing with a small group and are hoping to find a way to bring it at scale is comments, which is basically like hey, this call to action for like and favorite was just too close to this chest or whatever you want, whatever the example may be. There are some challenges there to scale, to be honest, which is our moderators are really good at moderation, and they are not as good about like they're not trained for effectively public speaking or writing things down. So we just need to make sure that they're able to communicate in a way that is like effective and clear. And again, like when you're dealing with a large group at scale, that just takes a little bit more time. So that's the type of thing that we're looking to solve for. But we totally hear you that it's an area where we could do a little bit better on, and I think it is a focus for us and one that we're working on already.
It would be helpful, just as a suggestion. Even if there are things like that. I mean, the likes and favorites is one that has been an issue for a long time. Now it's going to be favoriting creators and people, doing weird stuff around that. So if there are stuff like clarifications that you guys have, maybe if there was a page connected to terms of service that aren't necessarily, because don't scam players is like such a broad statement of like, well, what is a scam of a player? And then people are going to try and push that. So sometimes if there was clarifications, like don't put a like and favorite point or call to action next to something, like that would probably solve a lot of issues if there was some clarification there. Like don't put it next to a chest. Don't put it next. I don't know. Maybe it's getting too specific there. But it might be helpful to have some like a FAQ page or something that's like this isn't 100% every time going to be like this, but generally this might be a helpful guidance for creators as they're doing stuff so that we can avoid unnecessary takedowns. But okay, let's move on a little bit. I'm sure we'll come back to this type of question.
I think so what you're hitting on, chat, though, is that we want communication about where this is making life difficult. Like these are the things you're trying to make a judgment call here, and this doesn't make any sense. I think we rely a lot on our creative relations team to to help sort of get input from our creators at large to say here are the areas that we really want clarifications on, and it's on us to publish back, hopefully at scale, like some sort of clarification, or like for moderation decisions, just make them like clearer. Like I think we've made strides this year on at least having screenshots now and at least having descriptions on sort of the general reason. Like, and last year wasn't great, but we're better now. And I think the goal is to get to a point where it doesn't feel like a mystery what just happened. Like that's sort of the whole goal. Like, we don't win if it's a mystery for you how to get through the thumbnail. Like that's just annoying
100%.
for everybody.
And I will say, guys, it is much better than it was a year ago. And so thank you for those changes. And I think as it gets better and more clear, it'll just become easier. I mean, we've had much less moderation issues in recent months than it was a year ago. But
it's like saying like it doesn't hurt as much, but you're still bleeding. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
We get it. Like we don't want to sugarcoat this in any way. Like this is, we have a lot of effort going into attempting to dial out ambiguity, but it is a really hard problem. Like I can't count the amount of times we looked at a thumbnail like across like a wide swath of people that are really like deep in trust and safety and looked at it and going, I don't know, could go either way. Like that's not a good feeling when you realize that you've set up a system where there's some ambiguity. So we just try to get more and more specific in our training materials, more and more specific in our guidelines. But at the end of the day, while most creators are like they just want to do the best job of promoting their map, there's a certain amount of creators that want to be very, very close to the edge and continually want to push against the edge. It makes it challenging.
Yeah. I think just what we don't want to do is impose so many rules that it restricts creative freedom either, right? So like we do want to leave things open for and it's really assume the best of all creators so that they can sort of build whatever they want. But clarity often comes with like really explicit guidelines which can box in creativity. So when we're thinking about making rule changes and things like that, like that's one of the things that we really seriously consider because we don't want to like force everyone down the exact same path.
I think the reality is also like when we launched UEFN, like that's that sort of spring, like when that happened, we said, well, like now that we basically have the power of UE at everybody's fingertips, we're gonna make some commitments here. Like we're gonna pre-moderate every island. Well, that's a big commitment. We're gonna get to a rating system where like no matter your age, you're welcome in the ecosystem. Well, that puts another sort of like interesting like spin on it. And we want from a privacy perspective to be as privacy forward as we humanly can. And those decisions I think are pivotal for the type of ecosystem we want to build long term with creators. But it also makes it really, I don't know, like there's a lot of things that Epic has to learn, like to operate like really well. But the one thing we're trying not to compromise are those principles on the like we want this to be sort of the best, most predictable ecosystem for all ages to come and have fun.
Which I appreciate. It's tough sometimes, I will say, as a creator. You said before, Dan, about how there's people that are always trying to push limits of what you can get away with, and oftentimes they'll even go over the line. And it seems like sometimes they don't even get a slap on the wrist. Like maybe their map goes down or pulled off discovery for 20 minutes and then they submit a new update and it's back up and they're right back where they were. Like at what point has someone crossed the line so much that you remove them from the platform or like what kind of sanctions or punishments, or is there anything like that? Or do you guys just kind of to say, okay, you fixed it, so you're good. Like, so I'm just curious on that.
It happens all the time. I think so this year, I think we've issued something like 1,300 creator bans, probably. And that doesn't mean a permanent ban from the platform, but it's part of our sort of repeat offender program where it escalates sort of the more violations you accumulate. And when I say a ban, it's not just it blocks their ability to publish. It also blocks their ability to earn until the ban is over. So the thing that it doesn't necessarily do is keep an island that's in good standing off the platform. So I think sometimes people focus on the fact that, like, I reported this creator and they still have three islands live right now. Like, what is going on? They're clearly a bad actor. When the fact may be that, like, they could very well be suspended from uploading for a month and not realizing revenue. But we don't, that's not something that we like announce because we don't get into specific, like, we don't want to go around saying, like, with a public, ringing the shame bell, walking down the street.
Come on.
I know like sometimes I would love to do that, to be clear. Like, there are definitely instances where, like, maybe they have that coming, but by and large, it's, like they're sort of doing their time, and we don't really feel the need to publicize that for everybody. I think what we do want to make sure that folks are aware of is that, like, when content is reported, we do take it seriously, we review it, we take action against it. It's just not always in a way that's maybe as visible as people might expect. From
is there okay? That is news to me. That's crazy that number of 1,300 people have been banned, and that's really interesting that islands could still remain up. Is there any, I don't know, is there any thought behind, like, maybe sometimes a public example would show people to push the line less? Does that make sense? Like, if there's I'm not telling you let's go find the worst offender and parade them on the street, but maybe a public example would send a message, or even not like an individual example. You could say, hey, people that were breaking this rule, we banned 100 of them from receiving.
You're saying in aggregate.
Just to be like, hey, guys, don't break the rules, because we will punish you. And we've already punished 1,300 people, and because they were breaking rules. Versus, this is news to me. I've never heard that you guys have punished anybody. And so, like, that is like, maybe that would scare scammers and people from breaking terms of service, because they know they're going to lose stuff, or their island might get taken down or whatever.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I know we haven't talked too publicly about enforcement before, but it may be, like, I'll take it back to the team. I think it's definitely something worth considering.
We're maybe too eager to highlight the.
Like, they can.
No. Like, I mean, like the positives, because, like, the vast majority of creators like really want to build a business. They really want to do this, and we're very focused on removing that. Like, we see it as noise almost in the system. Like, we want to dial out the noise in the system, so like the people that make islands that players want to play can thrive, right? And a lot of this, like a lot of the, when Dan talks about like 1,300 sort of actions we've taken, like even though that people get demonetized and they get moved out. Let's say, and I think about botting, for example. Like, I think there's been a lot of like talk about botting in general.
Yeah.
That it's noise. Like, they occupy spaces in Discover, and like before, like the island is removed, and like there's a ton of noise that just happens because of this. So it's obviously very like, we're very keen to get the noise to a minimal level. We also just accepted that that's just human nature. Is like, if there's a commercial endeavor, then there's just a certain breed that wants to see if they can exploit it, right? So our job is to dial it out, but not make too big a deal about it. But I like your idea about talking about it in an aggregate. Like, yeah, I think that's a good idea to just, because the alternative, if you think, I guess they don't have their eyes on anything, like, this is kind of let everybody flourish. Yeah, like that.
And that's what it feels like sometimes. I'm just gonna be honest. It feels like that sometimes, and you're like, you see, because like my Twitter or X feed, whatever you want to call it, I still call it Twitter. Sorry, guys. My Twitter feed's full of people like, wow, this person did this thing, and this person copied that thumbnail, and this person's doing this XP glitch or has something in their thumbnail they shouldn't, or whatever. And it starts to feel like, man, there's nothing but bad things happening on the platform. But if you were to say, yeah, hey, we banned 1,300 people in the last quarter or whatever, and that revenue has gone back into the system to real creators that are trying their best, like, I think that could go a long way, just to letting people to take a deep breath sometimes. Because when you even look at the chat now, there's a lot of people that are like, they're just feeling, they feel this angst.
Let's use botting as an example. On the, like, we, similar to everybody else, you could see that all, like, bots started shooting up around November, December last year, and then really took like foothold January, February this year. And we feel like very strongly that we found, like, we have a systematic way to dial it out, and that no payments went out against botted islands, right? So behind the scenes, we feel like at least at a 98% plus is our estimate, like we were able to, like, to detect and demonetize those islands. But no, we don't go and advertise that, like, because it's just, I don't know, like, it just seems like that's kind of the cost of doing business here for us, is just trying to, like, play this cat and mouse game and play it effectively, and not get stuck on it and put too much attention to it. But we are, like, very much looking at that.
Another follow-up question to what you said before. So you don't take down the islands when someone has broken the rules, as long as the island's okay. But my counter to that would be, this person that has broken the rules and is now can't even have monetization for it, their island is now up taking real estate from otherwise honest creators. Is there any thought on that? I'm like, well, let's just remove their island so that other people have opportunity to be seen and played.
There's sort of I don't know, Saxs, I'm interested for your perspective on this too. I think there's a fine line between, like, yes, we want to, like, we don't want the creator to benefit, but we also don't want to punish players who maybe like those islands already have audiences. And so if you're a player and that's your favorite island, like, you may not really care what the creator did. Is like, if the experience that you're used to is a conforming island, us just taking that away from you is going to create like a pretty uncomfortable experience. So I don't think it's, I don't know, it's an interesting problem. But there are pros and cons to both approaches, right?
My only counter to that is, I mean, look, there's a million there. If you take down one island, the players will just find the next one that was super close to it. I mean, there's so many duplicates of the same types of game modes and genres, and like,
it's valid feedback, yeah, like, no doubt. Like,
yeah,
let's think through it. Like, so I think our operating assumption has always been that for most people, they make a mistake, right? Like, and it's not really, there's no malice there. And, like, and from a player perspective, like, if you give people a chance to come back and go, you know what, like, I'm not gonna, like, knock up against that door because it gets me demonetized for a week. So I'm gonna stay on my side of the street and just focus on making a good island. At the end of the day, like, we're better off like that. Like, if creators sort of self-correct on well, it's not really worth it breaking the rules if we're pretty good at sort of pushing you back again, go, no, this is not, we won't accept this style of island. So part of it is that. But I see what you're saying, like, on repeat offenders going, well, at some point it's just like, do we really believe that person, like, is accredited to the ecosystem? We haven't felt equipped to make that determination. That's the truth. That's a big thing. Like, this is people's livelihood.
I agree. I totally agree. And if you were to take down their island for a week, there would be less people doing bad things.
You're on the yes, like, make it hurt more.
And you don't, I mean, you don't have to publicly say, oh, we're removing island X because they broke rule Y, but you could just say, oh yeah, it's just gone. It's gone or it's at least, maybe they could find it if they searched it. It's not in discovery anymore. And then that is something I think where it's like there's frustration in the community of like, there's these good islands that should be getting players, but these bad islands or these bad actors or people that are breaking the rules are still getting discovery positions, which there's not that many. Let's be honest. There's only a couple, like 100 discovery positions.
I think it's solid, like what you're saying. Yeah. Like, we'll take it back and think about it. I think the truth is we use every opportunity to reevaluate our own thinking and second guess ourselves, like in a good way. Like I think the severity matrix, for example, we've revised a bunch of times because what seemed obvious until we started operating it, like what does it really mean if you put swear words in, right? Like sort of like and you're not, or you're not truthful about your rating or whatever it is. Like it's really easy to think about what that should be until you see an island go, like that seems like an honest mistake that just happened here, right? So we do a lot of soul searching on like, do our rules accomplish what we're trying to do for the ecosystem, which is when you play an island, you have an expectation about like the quality of the content and the sort of the age appropriateness of the content.
Is there any I appreciate what you're saying too. Like, what if there is an honest mistake, which I'm sure happens a lot, and it's not necessarily malice or they're a scammer or something. I think there is that. I think there is malice and scammers and stuff that are purposefully doing things out there. But do you ever communicate with the creator and say, "Hey, we noticed this thing. We want to understand what you do before we ban you or why you did that." And like, maybe there's a discourse, especially if there's a certain levels of CCUs. You're like, this is a fairly popular island and you've made this mistake. And according to our rules, we probably should remove something or do like, there should be something here. Maybe there's an opportunity for discourse there with the creator, or is that just too much? Like, there's just too much volume.
I think, yeah, it's not an approach that would scale particularly well for the volume reason. I think the thing, we do want to make sure that we're not creating like a multi-class system where some people are getting tipped off on a rule and other people are not. Like, we want to enforce uniformly. But I think, as far as finding ways to better communicate proactively when we think stuff is maybe on the line, like maybe there's more that we could do there, and we could think about that.
Yeah, I personally think like a pre-mod, like if you have questions that you can get essentially some assets like moderated without submitting them for publishing. I think like there are legitimate like times where you would say like, I'm not quite sure if I really want to go with this thumbnail, but I have a concern that they're going to see it as X, Y, and Z. Like, can I just submit it for pre-approval? But I don't want to be part of my publishing package or something like that. Like, honestly, I don't know what's actually possible now because I know we've been talking about doing exactly that. But that's part of it, is like opening a dialogue, but not on live. Like, once it gets to live, I think we have urgency to correct because it's player facing, right? If we can keep the dialogue sort of behind the scenes, then that would benefit creators and that would benefit us, right? When you have
some like
questions.
I love the idea of a pre-approval thing, system where you could submit before, get everything in line, and then you release that. That would be really interesting.
I think we're talking about this. I might be announcing a feature, but oh well.
Heard it here first, guys.
We're working on a publishing hold, essentially, of saying, hey, I want to publish on this date. So you can submit it for publishing, it holds, it doesn't go live, but you would have time to iterate on that and get it so it got through the queue, and you can sort of flip a switch to go out to be more predictable, right? So right now you sort of submit and it just goes out when it's ready.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
is it a queue? Is it a straight queue? Is like first come, first serve for moderation?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like there's not like some priority system or anything like that.
Yep.
Is there any plans at all to have a priority system, or like you're a trusted creator, you've reached a certain threshold of like,
we're not like Disneyland where you can get
you've gotten like 99% approvals, so you can get through it faster or something?
I think we talked about that a little bit at the top, right, with that thumbnail example. I think where we would be more comfortable going is relying on historical decisioning, and using that to like really focus the scope of a review for an update. So like, you are a good creator, you've submitted the same asset or the same island package with 99% the same assets every time. Like, we feel really good about those 99% things. We're not going to spend too much time looking at those. We'll just focus on the 1% new content. Like, I think that is an area that we'd be comfortable with, more than the sort of the Disneyland example that Saxs just mentioned, where like we don't want people feeling like they need to pay for like the premium experience with moderation. Like, ideally everybody gets the same premium experience and everybody's happy with the outcome.
Okay. I want to talk sorry, I'm going out of frame here. I want to talk a little bit about you brought up before, Saxs, the IARC ratings. I'm curious, is that your team that's moderating that, or is that somebody else? Is that AIRC that is moderating that? And then already a follow-up question to that is, how do you get consistency there? Because I've seen like top islands that have like really young ratings, and then other islands that are the exact same type of gameplay and they are higher age rating. And like, so how did the other maps get lower age ratings, and why are they still there for months and months? Like, so there's a little bit of inconsistency there. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah,
I'm on your area, Dan.
Yeah, I'm happy to take it. So we go about this in a couple of ways. The IARC survey itself is not something that we designed. We've implemented the survey through IARC. And so, for those who are maybe less familiar, though I imagine everybody who's paying attention to this right now has gone through it. You answer a whole bunch of questions about your experience, and at the end, it gives you a bunch of regional ratings. When we have no sort of input over that. That's IARC's determination. What we do is, when you submit your island through publishing, we'll tag things that may suggest like a particular age rating, but we're not going line by line through your answers to the survey and saying like, oh, this doesn't really match up with what I'm experiencing here. But if your island is rated E and it's like a death match, then like that should get caught through moderation. It's like, yeah, this doesn't seem quite right. I think the one thing that's worth noting, and I don't know that everyone is fully aware, is that like ratings vary sometimes pretty significantly by region. So like, something that's rated teen in the US could be rated PEGI 7 just because of like sensitivities are different, and different regions care about different things. And so just because a rating does not seem consistent on the surface doesn't necessarily mean that it is wrong. Though I'm sure that there are instances where maybe it is wrong. And in those cases, if we don't catch it through our moderation process, regional ratings bodies have the ability to go in and sort of manually review and change the rating on their back end as well, which is something that they do.
Is that so? Do they have like full-time people that are going through Fortnite Islands trying to check them?
Yeah, like that is part of the agreement that we have with IARC, is that they can go in and they review and they can manually change ratings of islands. Yeah.
So when
they do periodic audits of like, just to see if it's being applied sort of consistently in the ecosystem. Like, they have a vested interest, obviously, in their ratings being adopted worldwide as a sort of a trusted consumer insight into like what is appropriate across all regions. So they do a lot of spot checks and sort of help dial in their own questionnaire in essence.
So when there's like an auto change, because that's happened on our maps before, they're like, oh, in this region, it's now restricted or something. That's them doing that. That's not you guys. Or is it?
It's them.
It's them.
Yeah, that's almost certainly them. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Okay, good to know. I'm curious too. There's a couple questions about this. Is there any goals on Epic side to add more, or like increase the ratings at all, to like be able to add like or more horror maps or blood or something, like to be able to increase Epic's ratings so that more modes are going to be available,
So
or
like Epic's ultimate goal of seeding sort of like a part of an interoperable metaverse is all ratings should be applicable, right? Does that apply to Fortnite itself? Like that's a different question, right? But I think overall, as we think about what ecosystem are we designing, it has to be able to flex to all age ratings. Like that's sort of the base assumption. Like, what is that practical, and how does that work across every platform and what have we? Like there's a whole other consideration here, but like spiritually, yeah, like that's what we aspire to, is that any piece of content can find its home, and you and your friends like can choose like what is the age appropriate like content you want to see.
Interesting. Okay. I know we've already gone, I think, 40 minutes, and I'm going to skip over some of the questions I've had because there's a couple that I know are really high on people's minds. So I'm sorry if I didn't get to ask everything, guys. Like, I know there's some stuff you want to talk about, like the reporting system and some other things, but I maybe I can get to those in just a second after, but I want to make sure we cover
Lightning round.
lightning round. Well, let's see
Straight
if
to
you
the
can.
lightning round.
One topic that is very popular for people to complain about, and to that is a big issue in the world in general right now, is AI. We've seen a lot of AI thumbnails that pop up in Discovery, and I'm sure AI is going to get even more complex with, you know, already you can create models using AI. You can even do a lot of coding using AI, game design even. Like, at what is Epic's stance on AI? Is there any feedback there? Are AI images allowed in thumbnails? Like, yeah, I'm curious your guys' thoughts.
Saxs, do you want to do high level, and then I can get into maybe.
Sorry, I was on mute. Do you want to just can you do the thumbnail one really quick, and I'll talk about Epic.
Oh yeah, I think from our perspective for moderation, thumbnails, like we don't really care what tool you use to make your thumbnails. What we care about is whether or not it's compliant with our rules. And I think, to some degree, AI is going to become more and more difficult to detect. It's not going to stand out as a unique thing. It's just going to be another tool that people are using to create things. So trying to like look for that specifically is going to become increasingly difficult, to the point where it's probably going to become unenforceable. So we're really just focused on, like, does this asset comply with our rules? Yes or no, not like what tool did you use to make this asset?
Okay, I appreciate that answer. It's a little, I know that some of the community is going to struggle with that, especially artists and people that are paying artists to do it. It is a little, but it's such a tough, it is such a new thing. And so I get your answer there. I'm curious.
I think so our stance on it is like, as a, I don't know, 30 years as an engine like maker, like we have always strived to give people access to the best tools to make the best like content, because that's the way best games are made, is just tools. I think AI, like there's a lot of controversial aspects of AI, but what's unassailable is that it's revolutionizing a lot of workflows, like to make them incredibly powerful. And if we look at, like, we've been using machine learning models, like if you look at metahumans, like the underlying tech there is like, from scans we do, that we generate like a ton of the features that you see. A lot of our procedural tech that we use for doing landscapes are machine learning based. That we've always embraced new technology, but with an ethical stance on like this source of this, like, as we generate things, has to be understood, and it has to be properly licensed, right? So to that degree, like we rely on what we provide to people directly, to be the best tools that we can humanly do within like the ethical guidelines of and sort of proper ownership. But I think for me, if you can detect an AI thumbnail, then it also means like it has a particular look, that if you can stand apart with an artist that has a distinct style, you're still standing out against a, like, what is like in truth, like a lot of very generic looking AI generated art, right? So I don't think, like internally at least, do we feel like we need to start making Fortnite outfits using AI models? No. Like we believe that what we're like the approach we have taken embraces technology, but sort of puts humans in the center of it still, um, because that's how you get the best results.
I will
Oh,
say that there are a lot of great studios doing really compelling, thumbnail creation within UEFN. And I think
100%.
when you look at people who are putting in the effort and investing in creating the best possible version of a thumbnail, I think that they're standing out from the crowd, to Saxs' point, in a way that if you're just sort of taking the path of least resistance, it's probably not a
I totally agree with that. I think one of the problems is we've seen like whole trends. Like there was a trend last year with all of the crazy like different meme box PvPs where like every thumbnail was of I mean, gosh, we even saw like here's the rapper box PvP with all of the like rappers' images that were AI generated. And so it was kind of their likeness, but not really. We'll talk this in the next topic because we'll talk about IP, but there's like all sorts of like not owned IP generated quickly on AI. Like it gets a little bit sketchy there.
It's not a simple line to draw. No, there's no doubt about it. I think we rely on like that same art could have been drawn by an artist of the same caricatures that what we have to look at is just like what are the content guidelines here, not how were they generated. Because like at the end of the day, that's really what matters. But like
Interesting.
we've always had violative content. It's not like it's changed just because you can do an AI thumbnail. Like coins on thumbnails were a thing before AI too.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think it's a really difficult line to draw. There's no doubt. But we are really focused on at Epic and what like over the next year or so, like I think we're going to demonstrate a lot of that is like where we think we can get power from some of these models, like in areas where from a creator's perspective, it is so awesome that I can't wait to make things with this, like whatever it is, right? That's kind of what we've done before with metahumans. Like we don't focus on but how do we get that likeness like that good? Well, like the underlying model is almost irrelevant. What's relevant is that you as a creator can do a thing you couldn't do before, right? And you can do it with data that we say this data we know where it came from.
Okay, we should probably move on. We could probably talk about AI just and commiserate or talk about it for a long time because it's such an interesting topic. But I do want to talk about IP and your stance on IPs because this is probably even more than AI. This is what I see the most online people talking about is IP violations. People that don't have permission to put Spider-Man in their thumbnail or to have lightsabers in their island or whatever, like they are having, or they've just completely made an IP island themselves without permission. Can you clarify Epic's position on IP and what is allowed, what isn't? And yeah, and then I'll probably have some follow-up questions.
Yeah, the framing of what is allowed and what isn't allowed with IP is like I'm just chuckling a little bit because it's pretty straightforward. Like, don't use other people's IP if you don't have their permission to use it, right? That is the standard. If you use somebody else's IP without their permission, then you're subject to things like DMCA claims, which carry pretty significant ramifications. So I would say don't do it. We are anti-infringement here. And we operate within the bounds of the DMCA. I think the one thing that I will add, which I'm not sure that, I don't know if we've talked about this before or not, but we do proactively moderate for IP where we have an agreement in place with rights holders. So there are a couple of big sort of companies that we work with. They provide us with a whole bunch of assets which we use to train ML models and then review things on uploads so that we can automatically catch IP infringement. And that's an area or that's a program rather that we're looking to grow over time so that we can sort of snuff out more and more of it before it makes its way onto the platform. But until we've received signal from the rights holder themselves, it's not something that we proactively moderate for. I think the one thing that I do want to mention on the topic of IP is like the IP partnership program is sort of like exists for this reason, right? Like we know that creators want to work with these like really well-known IPs and build their own versions of these games, and so like that's an area that we're really excited about, and some of the brands that both exist today and some that will be coming to the platform soon. Like that's another area where we're trying to
I
address
think
this problem.
to double down on what Dan is saying there, the like our vision for the IP program is that like as we're working with Lego and with Turtles, and we just announced Walking Dead also, that like the real way to remove the sort of the IP infringement and the incentive for that is to allow creators to create with those IPs for real. So that's part of that's part of that. So we're going to continue to expand those programs, because it also allows us to, at the same time, as Dan was saying, to actively moderate against those IPs if they're not part of the program. It's just like copies, right? So we've the DMCA is not a perfect system for how to govern IP infringement. It is a system we have, and the system we have to live with, and we do our very best to action fast and be fair and have a really easy way that people can submit for infringement. Same with the unoriginal content reporting that we spun up not too long ago. But it does rely on, like, we don't know if somebody went and like, there was a TurboTax island. Like, we don't know if Intuit went and made a deal with that creator to make the TurboTax island, right? I think my understanding is they did.
I did.
But it's not like we couldn't possibly know that, and we don't want to say you can't.
I don't know if there's anyone that would on their own violation like volition go and make the TurboTax island, but
it's quite successful. It was quite successful. So I think that we want an ecosystem where creators can freely make IP arrangements with IP holders. Like, I think that really helps us. Like, Sony just launched a whole bunch of music islands. I think that's really important for the ecosystem. We can do that, but it also means we don't know what rights you actually have when you publish something. We rely on the IP holder responding to a claim that, you know what, like that nobody has a right for this and we need you to take it down.
it's okay. I hear what you're saying, and I understand. I also understand. I just want to say this for the community and just for myself. It's tough when you see some IP violator being shown on home bar that has, I don't know, Godzilla up on the thumbnail, and you know they don't have permission for that, and they don't get punished, they don't get removed because I don't know who the rights owner is for Godzilla, but like didn't come in and file a DMCA against them. And it's
Legendary
like
in the Monsterverse.
yeah, so yeah, exactly. Legendary doesn't know that some random island on Fortnite is violating their IP, and so they don't file a DMCA, and they're getting thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars doing this while people that are following the terms of service are getting overshadowed by people that are playing off of IPs that that the player base cares about. They want to go and play Godzilla Island or a Spider-Man experience or something. And it is hard. It's just hard to sit back and see that without when
Totally.
it's a clear
No,
violation.
we understand that.
Yeah.
No, we totally understand that. Like, and we in a perfect world, we would have an agreement with all IP that they said, hey, do your best to weed out the things that are not licensed, because we haven't licensed with anyone unless we tell you to that we did. Yeah, like, but it's just it's not like IP is very widespread, springs up really fast. And
Yeah.
like, well, Godzilla is certainly a known IP. Majority of IP that have resonance right now, like, are not like they go to spring up really fast. But I think even more so, like Godzilla is an example you mentioned, but I think between creators in general, like sort of the when you feel like people are pushing up against or like sort of deliberately siphoning off your traffic with misleading content or whatever, like all those things are things that that we're trying to develop better and better safeguards for. So again, the unoriginal reporting system was specifically for that because we didn't have a good we just didn't have a good method to do that, and like we're a little better at it now, but not perfect for sure.
Appreciate that. I understand how difficult. I mean, we've already covered a ton of topics and like 1,000 different things you guys have to watch for every day. And so, appreciate what you guys are doing. I did have one last question. So how do you guys deal with stuff that's off platform? So we've got Fortnite. You already have tons to look at on the discovery. Then you've got creators out there that are promoting their islands on YouTube or Twitch or TikTok or something, saying, "Oh, I'm going to give you a free skin if you come play my island," or you have to favorite me on the island to get the secret or something. And it's like, it's clearly misleading. It's clearly a violation of terms of service, and at least on the promotional side of things. How do you guys moderate that? If someone reports it to you, does anything happen? Like what is your stance on that? Because it is very frustrating for us to see someone basically scamming kids to come to their island, and then they get this big boost. They're now like way up high in discovery, or they're getting tons of favorites or something. And then there's people that are doing it honestly and like, oh, how am I supposed to compete with that?
So there's two different tracks that we take on this. One, like we have a team that actually does monitor for this sort of stuff, like misleading off-platform promotion specifically. They've issued 20,000 DMCAs against videos this year alone. Like it is a team that is like kind of prolific output, to be honest. Like anytime I meet with them and sort of go through, I'm like, and they're watching all these videos. So like soon they'll be one with the algorithm, I think. But tons of content is coming down there. But it is a bit of a whack-a-mole, and we do want to make sure that when we are taking down that type of content, that it is truly misleading content. Like there's no world in which what they are promising in their video can happen in the island. At the same time, we're also looking at the islands. Like, so is the island itself sort of leaning into this sort of misleading promotion, or is the island non-violative? And a lot of the time, like by the letter of the law, the island is pretty innocuous. There's not really much happening there. And so then the challenge becomes, okay, well, for the off-platform, are the off-platform creator and the on-platform creator the same person? Like, do we know definitively that they're the same person? And if the answer is yes, then we can action the creator on platform. But if it's not, we don't want to punish a creator because of a misleading video, because like you could imagine a world where like somebody who has it out for you is creating a misleading video promoting your island in the hopes that you get punished for it. And like so we want to be really mindful of that, because it's a pretty clear area for
more commonly, like the person on YouTube just wants views on YouTube and is claiming that something happens on a particular island that just doesn't happen, right? So it's both. It's not just malice towards, like the creator can be completely like a silent accomplice in this thing for a popular island to say, I know how to get XYZ on this popular island. Like that drives views on YouTube, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's like to Dan's point, like the amount of actions we've taken, this is a relatively new endeavor for us to be this active off platform, but we think it's pivotal that we try to weed out as much as possible that misleading content off platform is just as bad as misleading content on platform.
Hey, well, I know we're out of time. We've gone over an hour talking about this. Is there anything that you guys can tell us you're currently working on, or something we can look forward to in moderation?
It's pretty dark. It's a pretty dark topic. Yes, I feel like we searched like the corners of the internet, like so, like.
Yeah, I've gotten to know things I never thought I would. I'll say, like from a roadmap perspective, there are a few things that we could talk about. One is we are working to automatically detect and prevent creators from uploading thumbnails that already exist on platforms. So just stop them at the source rather than waiting for folks to have to report to our own original promotional asset reporting process. So that's one that we're making good progress on and feeling good about getting out this year. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about?
Yeah, so that's huge, by the way. I love that.
Yeah, I like any improvement that we make, I think is a good one, to be honest. Like, you know,
Yeah,
we're not here to suggest that there's no work to do. Like, there's no shortage of work to do, really. We could do this forever. Second thing, Saxs, you sort of talked about this one a little bit, is sort of suggesting to creators within Creator Portal or within UEFN when an asset, whether it's sort of an in-game asset or metadata, may be violative. So that would work like, you know, you upload a thumbnail, we run our ML classifier against it, and it detects coins, and you see a message in Creator Portal that says like, hey, looks like this may violate our rules. You should check this out before submitting. So again, just trying to help creators have more predictable experiences with moderation and limit the amount of times that you need to go through that process. Like, ideally, everyone is submitting fully compliant maps and we don't need to send things back and remoderate again.
that's great.
I talked about sort of the hard thumbnail solution or problem, the solution to that problem, where if a thumbnail has been approved a handful of times before, if the next creator or the next moderator comes along and says, actually, this looks like a problem to me, we won't just sort of take that at face value. We'll reevaluate before changing a course of action, so that, again, there's less surprise and confusion with the moderating process. And then moderator comments, which I talked about at the beginning. You know, like, we are really trying to figure out a way to bring that to scale. This is probably the one that I'm like least confident will land this year, just because of some of the nuances there. But it is something that we're really focused on trying to make work to our standard.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you guys talking with us and doing these. I know you just did one, I think it was a month ago, with Immature Gamer, and you know, I hope you guys will continue to do these. I think these are very helpful and healthy for the community, and appreciate everyone for being here and listening and asking questions. Sorry we didn't get to your questions. I think we answered a lot of your questions in the discussion, but I think this was very productive, and I feel like I learned a lot today just talking with you guys. And you guys are going to be at Unreal Fest.
Well, yeah, yes. I got to plug my panel. So if you're going to Unreal Fest, please come to the moderation panel. And it's personal, because last time we were runner-up to the Discover panel in terms of attendees, and I just can't have that happen again. So, like, please don't even register for Discover. Only come to moderation.
Riveting. Yes.
It's really good. I'll answer any question.
Yes. No, I think Unreal Fest is very important for us. Like, so these are really important. Yes, we are going to continue to do them. We're hoping to do them about once a month is the goal going forward. I will be sort of the common person through, and then it'll be a rotating cast of characters that come in and just like whatever is hot on people's minds. Hopefully we can get through. There's a lot of backlog, I feel like, of just deep discussions that need to happen. But beyond that, we're very keen to get to a point where we start looking outwards from a feature and platform perspective on what we're working on. But Unreal Fest is like an awesome chance to just come and have one-on-one discussions and just, I don't know, build relationships. Like, I think the one we had last year in Seattle was fantastic. Year before in New Orleans was really good. I feel like we're getting better at it. And from an Epic perspective, we're choosing to say Unreal Fest is like, that's the thing we focus on now. We used to focus a lot on GDC. We've directed all of it into Unreal Fest now, because we just have such an awesome creator community and developer community that are willing to come out and sort of engage with us. And it gives us the energy we need for the next 12 months to focus in on what's most important for everybody.
Right. Well, hopefully we see all of you guys there. I'll be there. Saxs and Dan, I'm excited to see you again in person, and thanks again. And yeah, guys, the next one next month, hopefully, and we'll keep chatting.
Cool.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks all.
All right. See you, everyone.